Hey, ladies, would you like to create a life that you truly love? Like, just think about it. What would it mean to you if you were able to turn pain into possibility and breakdowns into breakthroughs? Amazing, right? And in today's episode, Tabitha MacDonald will be sharing her exact recipe for doing just that. So stay tuned. I'm awesome Angie Ingstrom.
GITTE, and I just want to start out by welcoming you to our show today, Tabitha. We are so excited to have you here. So welcome, Tabitha.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Nice to hear. Okay, so today is going to be a great episode. I know Tabitha will be sharing a lot of goals, so please stay tuned. And for those of you who don't already know Tabitha, I'm just going to share a little bit about her. She is an intuitive coach. She's a body worker, and she focuses on helping people go from pain to possibility as fast as possible by integrating mind, body, and soul for lasting transformation in her clients' health and in their relationships. So I'm really looking forward to diving more into your work, Tabitha. And yeah, this is going to be cool. Welcome once again. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming.
Yes, welcome to Momentum Makers Podcast. So, in like 10 seconds, just kind of tell us, what is your business?
I have a mind body based practice. So I work with clients to help them take them from pain to possibility. I use the Enneagram to teach them about their personality. I teach them intuition so that they can be empowered in their decision making. And I use Recode to help them remove the blocks that are keeping them stuck in their old reality.
Wonderful. And so what inspired you to get into this? This is amazing.
I worked in corporate America, and I remember walking in one day and thinking I would probably die in that environment because it was just not cut out for me. I felt like I was living in a game of Survivor, and it was like I just wasn't cut out to play the social game. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. And so I got laid off, and then I was looking for something new, and the universe guided me to massage. And really it was just a cheap way to stay in a foreign country because I studied in England. And it became a really fun adventure. And then it was really my calling. And because I very much like to know how to solve things, I got really nerdy into massage and became I'm a pain expert. And then I noticed I couldn't shift the pain for everybody. And that's when I got into the mindset piece, because it was a pattern in their brain that needed to shift, not the physical shift. And now that's how basically I got into mind body. How I got into relationships is because I noticed people who had endured long-term emotional or narcissistic abuse couldn't shift their pain because it was like trapped in their physiology. And so we needed to do a whole new approach of educating them and then removing the painful triggers from the emotional abuse. And then their bodies followed very quickly.
I love
So
this. Oh my
yeah, so
gosh,
powerful. Now,
Tabitha.
now I wanted to know because I know that you work with a lot of tools, Tabitha, and one of the tools you use is the Enneagram. Would you share a little bit about that?
Oh, yes, I love the Enneagram. I was in a relationship and we were reading this book called Buddhism for Love. And the author said, if you want to do one thing for your relationship, know your Enneagram type. And since I'm such a nerd, I immediately went and was like, what is this? And I studied everything that you could find on the Enneagram. And as soon as I read the description of a social seven, it felt like somebody had crawled into my head and explained the exact reason I was the way that I was. And I felt validated and seen for the very first time in my whole life. And it was amazing because then I started having all my clients take the Enneagram, and it helped me understand how they saw the world so I could understand how to best serve them. And it gave me language to communicate with them in a way to take them from point A to point B as fast as possible for them, because then I could speak the way that they understood the world.
Mm. Now, if some of the listeners don't really know what the Enneagram is, would you sort of explain it?
Yes, the Enneagram is an ancient personality type system. It's I mean, been around for thousands and thousands of years. It predates all of the modern ones. And in my opinion, having taken most of them, it's the most accurate system for really understanding the like manual for your brain, your operating system, how you see the world. It helps you understand your shadow or the things that are keeping you stuck, because most of the time when we're not getting the results that we want, it's because there's a part or aspect of us that we can't see, we're not supposed to see, and it's the one that's getting in our way the most. It gives you basically a manual. Like if you see these behaviors, this is the block for, you know, type 4 or 7 or 8. But on the flip side, it also gives you your genius. So where your strengths are and how to utilize that in any area of your life, not only business, but in your relationships and with finances, pretty much with all aspects of your life.
So fascinating.
That's awesome. You also mentioned, like I know you have a process, like when you work with a client. Let's dive into that maybe.
Yeah, so when I first meet with someone, I like to know where they want to go. So I'll sit down with them and we'll look at their goals, what's not working for them, and what they would like to have. And a lot of women actually don't know what they would like to have. And so that's a really hard question for them. And so sometimes we'll spend a couple of sessions just getting them to know what their values are, know what they want, and to actually get them to understand that they're allowed to have what they want. And then once we define where we're going, then we'll, you know, take a look at where they are now, help them understand their personality and how they work. And then I start teaching them how to tap into their intuition so that they can use their own inner knowing to help make them be in alignment, like body, mind, and soul, so they can make more efficient decisions for themselves.
Love that. GITTE, if you have any questions on this, I'm
Yeah,
very familiar with a lot of this work, so I'm not coming up with natural questions very well. Because
I was wondering, Tabitha, because in the introduction you sort of said you also help people with their relationship. So
Mhm.
yeah, how do you do that, and how does that correspond to their business or their work life?
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you a story. So I met this lady at an intuitive fair and I was teaching the Enneagram, and she introduced herself and she said, I'm a 3 and I can't stop crying and I don't know what's wrong with me. And I just kind of gave her like a nice hug and I was like, I get it. I'm a 7. I had the same experience. Like we have to learn how to be late in life feelers. It's okay. I'll help you. And so she signed up to be a client of mine. And all of our sessions in the beginning were centered around her husband and how basically horrible he was. And I knew my intuition was telling me that he was not the problem. And as we got through it, turns out she had joined his company to run the family business. And they had brought in these 2 narcissistic partners who were trying to destroy her marriage so they could take over the business. And it was fascinating because she couldn't see it because she had a history of narcissistic abuse, not from her husband, but in the past. And so they fed into that programming that was already there and were basically turning them against one another. And so once I finally got her to the point, and it wasn't that long. I mean, actually, considering how long it would have taken in counseling, we got her there pretty quickly where she could finally see the trap that she had been ensnarled in. And then I helped her understand how her Enneagram type 2 husband saw the world, which was very different than how she did. And now they have like this amazing marriage. She left the company, she's starting her own business. And her marriage is like better than ever. Like she's so in love with her husband. She got exactly the relationship that she asked for in the beginning. She didn't know it was going to be with the man she was already with, but how beautiful that her whole family was saved. Now she's following her own purpose and passion in life. And that separation of them not running the business together was the best thing also for their marriage. And these, you know, now these 2 narcissists did not win. So yay for the team. And they don't have control over the marriage anymore, which I think is a huge win. So it's amazing.
That's
Wow.
awesome that
Yeah.
that you exist to help people see that, because like you said, when someone's in a situation like that, they can't necessarily see it.
No.
Like,
Oh,
that's for all of us.
Yeah.
ah.
Exactly.
You want to speak to
Especially
that?
if you have a history of narcissistic abuse somewhere in your
Mm.
mind, because they hook into that already existing neural network and they
Mm.
use it. And most people have no clue that it's happening to them because they groom you, they isolate you, they tap into the thing you desire most because they can read it. And then they use that as a tool to control you. And it's usually the smartest, most successful women that this happens to. And we're not talking, it's because they know how to tap into the emotions that usually they're not really recognizing that they're longing for.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'm
love
getting
this.
goosebumps. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, I love this, Tabitha. Any other stories you want to share with us? Client success stories?
Yes, I mean, I have many. I have another lady who came to me, same thing. A lot of them show up crying midlife 40s and they think they're having a midlife crisis. And I'm like, no, this is your midlife breakthrough. Like, let's get you to the other side and figure out what either your body or your emotions are trying to communicate to you. And that, she came to me just sobbing and she didn't know how to stop. And again, she had a narcissistic boss who was slowly destroying her self-worth and confidence. Best thing that happened to her was she got laid off and we started working together about what her purpose was. And as I started helping her understand her Enneagram type 2, that her emotions were her superpower and that her ability to feel was her greatest asset. And she came from an Asian American family where like feelings, like in her tradition, not all, I'm not saying that as a blanket statement, but it wasn't really okay to have big feelings. It was all about success and achievement. Because of the way her family had grown up in, post-war and some scarcity. And so it wasn't really safe to feel. And so we had to go through this midlife, learn how to feel experience and teach her how to be okay with that. And then also we cleared a lot of ancestral trauma for her. And now she's successfully dating. They're talking about moving in together and starting a family. And she went back to work very confident in her ability to navigate more complex dynamics at work and how to handle her emotions, but also use them as her ability to really help and lead her team. So it's been an amazing transformation for her. And I had her at my women's circle last night, and she was just like radiant. And I remember when I met her, she couldn't stop crying. She thought life was ending, and she was just really desperate for answers and like to feel good again in her body. So that was a really great
That's
transformation.
awesome. Can
Yeah.
you speak a
Amazing.
little bit to the body piece? Like, how do you help someone understand that their body's talking to them? Talk through that.
I love that question. It's one of my favorites. It's how I got into this work. Um, I'll give you an example. I'm a storyteller. So I had a lady come in who had migraines for 60 years. She's had chronic headaches and migraines, and she did not like to be touched. She was very much standoffish. I shouldn't do facial expressions for a podcast, but yeah. So she was very and I work with trauma. I do a lot of trauma-based body work. And so I was like, no problem. Let's just start exploring the jaw and the mouth. And so we started on the physical piece of the migraines, and her migraines had escalated to 20 migraines a month. And that's a lot. And I asked her, like, where do you want to go? How would you like to feel? Because that's the first question I always ask people. She couldn't even answer the question. She was just like, I just want to be out of pain. I just don't want to hurt anymore. And I'm like, okay, great. That's our first step. And what would you do if you weren't in pain? But like, she couldn't even go there. And so 2 sessions, no migraines, they were completely gone. And then I knew we could delve into the mind piece. And so we used a neuro-linguistic programming technique where I found the physical cue in the brain that set off the migraine pattern, and we rerouted it to a new pattern. And so anytime she used to have a migraine, I was able to trace back that her back would spasm and then it would travel up her spine. And then it had this specific pattern that it would flow through. And then I just installed a new pattern where when you feel the initial cue, you're going to go lay down and have a glass of water. And it completely, she couldn't have the old pattern come in anymore. She like, as soon as she felt the back give her the first cue, she would go lay down and have a glass of water. And then it would stop the migraine from coming. Like, it just completely eliminated it. And so then we decided to go a step further because she was starting to feel one creep back in. And I knew it was a parts integration issue where there was like an old part of her identity that used the migraine that she's unaware of. Like, this is happening under the background. Most people have no idea that this is happening. But it was an old part that her emotionally unavailable mother, this was when she was little, if she had a sickness or a migraine, she would get attention and nurturing. And so she had developed this unconscious pattern of, if I need to feel nurtured and supported, I'll have something happen in my body so that someone will take care of me instead of me always needing to be the caregiver. And so once we identified the part, and I did something like, it's a perceptual shift. So I had her go talk to the migraine and ask her what it wanted. And this is something scary. So if you know anyone who's had chronic pain in their lives, they don't want to sit down and talk to their pain. It's scary for them. So that's where I'm like the pain whisperer. I can talk to pain and hear what it's trying to say. And so I'd like think of myself like a relationship coach in all aspects, because I'm like, I'm just here to help you understand what the pain is trying to communicate to you in the safest way possible. And so when we sat down, really what the pain wanted was for her to leave her stressful job and pursue her real passion of writing. And so when we uncovered that, she looked like 30 years younger when she left that day. There was this weight off of her. She's never had another migraine. That one just completely went away. And now she's flooded with ideas on what to do when she leaves her very, very stressful job. So that's another example of how the body is communicating to us all of the time. But most of us are unaware because we're afraid to sit with it, because a lot of my clients think it means that they're old. And I'm like, no, it's not that you're old. It's that you were not communicating. By the time pain is showing up in your body or sickness, it's like, hey, you haven't been listening to the other stuff. This is me really trying to get your attention. There's something important that you need to know.
Do you find, okay, so from my background, where I came from, if I were to turn around and explain to my family and, people what you just said, they'd be like, what? That's just like, what? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's just goofy. I totally am jiving with this. So, but so walk me through that. Like, the objections, like, do people, are they already past that point when they get to you or not?
I love that question because I am still working on messaging because of this very reason. And if I'm sitting with one person, they usually get it because they were referred to me. And they'll come in and say, my friend sent me to you. I don't know what you do, but she just said you would help me. And I'm like, fair enough, because I work mind body. Like, so like, it's hard because it's not common. And every time I meet someone, they're like, no, what you do is not normal. And I'm like, no, but everybody can talk to pain and love at the same time. Like, I think that's just easy. And they go, no, it's not. And so it's fascinating because it's trying to communicate that to people is my greatest challenge. And that's why I'm in a messaging class right now. It's not easy. But when they come in, they're like, now I get it. Because once you experience it, then it's like, wow, now I get it. Because the biggest objection, and this is because I do a lot of like body positivity coaching and like how to be in your body for trauma survivors. And they go, well, I don't want to go work through my pain. That's the biggest objection. I don't have time to go deal with my trauma. I tried therapy and I don't want to do it. It's too much work. And I'm like, but you don't have to. We can just direct you where you want to go. And the recode will take care of those emotional triggers that like will change the things that are blocking you fast. We don't have to go sit and talk about your crummy childhood or, something that happened to you in your 20s. We can just keep moving forward. And as you set the goalpost where you want to go, the trauma doesn't exist in that new choice, in that new reality, and that new structure. So it heals in the wake of it. And like, as you start going in momentum towards where you're going, the stuff you don't want to face, we don't have to go talk about it for 20 years. It can heal as we move forward. And it's not the same as burying it. It's not the same thing. It's because we use recode, we use NLP, we create new neural pathways. And then, any really big emotions or trap things, we can use a technique called the whiteout method, which will remove an emotional trigger from a really traumatic event very quickly within like an hour.
I love this. Giti, do you have anything to add or questions? And you're on mute. You're muted. You need to unmute. Somehow you got muted. Oh no, Giti's muted. How did we get that? I don't know why you're muted. That's so interesting. All
Yeah,
right.
that's
There you
strange,
go.
but because I don't know how that happened. Doesn't matter. Yeah, is there anything else you want to share with us today, Tabitha? Because I know you work with a lot of different things. We already heard about a lot of them, but yeah,
Yeah, I think before we started, we talked a little bit about attachment theory. And this
we
is
did.
something
Yeah.
that I work with my clients a lot. So Enneagram and attachment theory are really important for, I think, business owners to understand, and your relationships, because when you understand your attachment theory, your attachment style, and there's four main attachment styles, and it's a theory about how we show up in relationships. So the first one is the anxious attachment style. I would say that's most equated to like codependent tendencies. The next one would be avoidant, where people push away. So anxious like pulls forward and gets a lot of anxiety in relationships. Avoidant pushes away. And then there's a disorganized attachment style, which does both anxious and avoidant. So it pulls and then pushes, the push-pull. And then the last one is the secure attachment style. And that's just this really healthy relationship style that we all strive for. So in my relationship course, I help people get to a secure attachment style. What this has to do with business is that
Mm-hmm.
usually our attachment style will show us how we are in relationship with our business. So if you have an anxious attachment style, you might show up to your business with more desperation, like you're not an equal partner to it. And if you're doing that, you're making decisions more from, if this is successful, I'll get love. And then we become a little codependent on the business, and then also on how our clients receive the work that we do. We take on too much responsibility for their results. And then that creates way too much frustration and responsibility. And then the business becomes not as enjoyable because we're not putting the results on how we show up. It's how they see us only. And so it's a really interesting. I have it on my podcast, on the Mindful Love podcast. Listen to an episode on the attachment styles. It's very educational. With the avoidant, they'll avoid doing the things that make them uncomfortable in the relationship. And so like sitting down and creating some structures or things that are uncomfortable for them, whatever it is, maybe it's interacting with people, they'll push it away. So they'll almost be like, oh, hi, business, and then push away the business, much the way that they would with a like relationship. So they'll be all in the beginning, and then the fear of rejection comes in, and then they go, oh, that's, you know, I'm going to push it away. The anxious avoidant gets the joy of doing both. And so that's what I've worked through my anxious avoidant attachment style. But recently I noticed I was doing the same thing with my business, where I was like love bombing it and then pushing it away. And I was like, this is not how we run business. So, but then that's when I put it together. I was like, oh, it's my attachment style that's impacting the way that I'm showing up in my business right now. And then the secure attachment style is the one where you just like are secure in yourself, you're secure in the relationship, and you can tell when you're in that relationship with your business because you're not afraid to have difficult conversations with your business. What do you really need from me? And you don't take it personal. You're just like, okay, that's interesting. How can I have this secure attachment style with my business? And how do I make sure that I practice that attachment style in all areas of my life? Now, if you grew up in a home where there was any kind of, you know, emotional neglect or abuse or addiction, you probably have either an anxious avoidant or an anxious avoidant attachment style. It usually isn't an environment that fosters a secure attachment style. So the first thing I do with my clients is teach them what that is, because they actually don't know what a secure attachment style is. So we have to go through the process of educating them and letting them learn how to operate in a completely new way. And it benefits every area of their life, including their health, their business, the way that they handle money, how they interact with their kids, pretty much just everything. And it's a really beautiful transformation when we go from, you know, into that secure attachment style.
I love that.
So, yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead,
So
Judy.
I was just gonna clarify. So you actually you help them change the attachment style both in business and in relationship.
Yes, because how you do one
Okay.
thing is how you do most things. And so if you think about business, money, all of it, it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship that you have,
Mm,
especially females, right? Because we're very relationship based.
mm, yeah.
And I think to fit into a very masculine dominated world, we try to like suppress that part of us, but it is really our greatest asset is our ability to build community and relationships is what we do well. And so if we have an avoidant attachment style or an anxious one, it's going to be really hard to build a strong relationship with your team and a strong relationship with your business, with your business.
Mm,
So, you know, if you have that like avoidant, I'll do it all myself, I can't trust anybody, that's going to filter in your business and you're not going to be able to hire and lead a team. And then you're going to be exhausted and have burnout and not understand why you can't seem to find people who will work for you in a way that will support the growth of your vision.
mm. So
Love this
fascinating.
conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Love this. All right, what else? I want more. How can our listeners find more?
Well, I have a podcast. It's called the Mindful Love Podcast.
It's awesome,
I
by the way. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I love
Um,
it.
I did not love it at first. It was like one of those things that the universe was like, this is where you're going, and I was kind of pulled along, and now I love it. Now I'm a choice with it. And I love doing it, and it's so much fun. I collect a lot of stories of women who have undergone like really huge challenges and transformed their lives because of it. And I think that one of my favorite things to show people is that where your pain is also where your genius is. So let's not be
Mm.
afraid to go there. But you can also sign up for my weekly newsletter. It's a mind body newsletter that I send out. And that you can find me at mindfullove.love.
Excellent.
Thank
We'll put all
you.
those links in the show notes. Go ahead, Giddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just gonna thank you once again, Tabitha. It's been such a pleasure having you on our show. I think you shared so much, my mind is just racing. There's so much to digest. I'm gonna have to listen to this episode later. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for coming.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I'm GITTE.
And I'm awesome Angie Engstrom, honoring the awesomeness in all of you. So thank you all for listening. Keep your momentum, keep moving forward. And if you want to learn more about Elite Virtual Stages and what GITTE and I do, helping businesses, helping you turn your expertise into 6 or 7 figure days using transformational virtual masterclasses, you can find us on Facebook and the web at elitevirtualstages.com/report. We'll get you connected in. And once again, thank you so much for listening. Keep your momentum, keep moving forward. Thanks, Tabitha, for joining us.
Thank you.